The obsidian throne hummed with the low, pulsing energy of 1,000 conquered worlds. Its war room stretched wide beneath a vaulted ceiling of black crystal, the walls lined with trophies from species long extinct. High Overlord Vexus sat upon his jagged throne, his chitinous claws tapping impatiently against the armrests. The holographic war table flickered before him, displaying the latest burning embers of resistance crushed beneath the Dark Federation's heel. Admiral Krell's 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical readouts. His Vorak hide, thick and scaled, shimmered under the dim light. "Zenthar Prime falls within the cycle," he announced, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. "Their last defense fleet is scrap, another victory for the Federation." Cirrus Ylva stood apart from them, her robed form barely visible in the shadows. The last of the Eldari, her kind had been dust for millennia. Only her voice remained, whispering warnings from the void. Her glowing eyes dimmed as she spoke. "You celebrate too soon, Krell. The next world you target will not break so easily." Vexus flexed his claws. "Speak plainly, Oracle. We have no patience for riddles." Ylva stepped forward, her skeletal fingers tracing the hologram. The image shifted, showing a small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. "Earth," she murmured. "The humans." Krell barked a laugh, the sound like grinding stone. "Humans fragile, slow, divided. Their fleets are toys. Their greatest wars were fought over patches of dirt before they even left their atmosphere." The hologram flickered again, displaying grainy footage of human conflicts. Ancient wars fought with crude projectiles, trenches dug in mud, cities burning under atomic fire. Krell waved a dismissive hand. "Tribal squabbles. They have no discipline, no unity. Look at them, still fracturing into factions even after reaching the stars." Ylva's voice dropped to a whisper. "You see only what they were, not what they are, not what they become when threatened." Vexus leaned forward. "Explain." The Ceres closed her eyes. "The Eldari Codex speaks of them, a species forged in blood long before they touched the void. They do not fight for glory, they fight to erase threats." Krell scoffed. "Superstition. Their technology is decades behind ours. Their ships are slow, their weapons primitive. One fleet. One could burn their homeworld to cinders before they even raise a shield." Ylva's gaze sharpened. "Their greatest weapon is not technology, it is memory. They never forget. Wound them, and they will hunt you across stars. Break them, and they will return tenfold. They are not like the others." Vexus rose from his throne, his massive frame casting a shadow over the war table. "Ina, the Federation does not fear myths." He turned to Krell. "Dispatch the Faith Annihilation Fleet, burn their outer colonies. Let them see what true power looks like." Krell saluted, his grin revealing rows of needle, sharp teeth. "By your command, Overlord. Their screams will be a warning to the rest of the galaxy." Ylva watched them, her voice barely audible. "Beware the ones who forged empires in blood before they reached the stars." But no one listened. The war table flickered as holograms of human history played across its obsidian surface. High Overlord Vexus leaned forward, his chitinous claws scraping against the armrests of his command throne. "Show me again why we should fear these humans," he hissed, mandibles twitching with impatience. Admiral Krell tapped a data crystal, pulling up grainy footage of ancient Earth conflicts, tanks rolling across frozen steppes, mushroom clouds blooming over cities, orbital platforms crashing into Martian colonies. "Observe their so-called greatest wars," the Vorak sneered, his segmented tail flicking dismissively. "Tribal squabbles over dirt and ideology. They barely mastered fusion when we were already building Dyson spheres." A soft chime echoed through the chamber as Cirrus, Ylva glided forward, her tattered Eldari robes whispering against the deck. The ancient oracle's 6 eyes glowed faintly as she extended a withered hand over the hologram. The images shifted, showing something darker. "These are not just records," Ylva murmured. "They are warnings." The projection zoomed in on a single frame, a human soldier, armor cracked and bloody, standing atop a mountain of corpses. His eyes burned with something that made even Vexus's carapace prickle. Krell snorted. One primitive with delusions of grandeur. What of it? Ylva's voice dropped to a whisper. You see a corpse. Pyle, I see a pattern. The hologram flickered again, now displaying data streams from the Eldari Codex. Ancient texts recovered from dead worlds. The humans have a saying, never again. It is not a plea. It is a promise. Vexus shifted uncomfortably. Explain. The Cirrus tapped the air, pulling up a star map dotted with red markers. Every civilization that pushed humanity to the brink vanished, not conquered, erased. The Zenthari hegemony, the Draxian swarm, all dust because they made one mistake. Her glowing eyes locked onto Vexus. They let humans remember. Krell slammed a claw down, scattering the holograms. Superstitious nonsense. Their fleet registers barely 300 capital ships. Our dreadnoughts outgunned them 10-1. Ylva didn't blink. And what will you do when they stop fighting like a fleet? The projection changed one last time, showing a crude human diagram labeled Project Icarus. They built weapons from our own dead gods, not to win battles, to end species. Silence hung thick as the hologram zoomed in on the schematics. A twisted amalgam of Eldari singularity tech and human brutality. Vexus felt his ventral plates tighten. You're saying they've been holding back? The Cirrus turned away, her robes fluttering like funeral shrouds. I'm saying when humans fight for survival, they do not stop at victory. They rewrite history until only one truth remains. Her voice dropped to a whisper, that they were always the predators. Krell's laughter rang hollow. Then we'll crush them before they can blink. Ylva didn't smile. That is what the Zenthari said too. Look upon their works, Admiral. The hologram dissolved into static, leaving only a single Eldari rune burning in the air. The ancient symbol for extinction. Vexus stood abruptly, his throne screeching against the deck. Enough. We depart for soul within the cycle. His claws flexed. Let us see if these humans fight as fiercely as their ghosts. As the War Council dispersed, Ylva lingered by the viewport watching the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth's blue marble spun quietly in the dark, waiting, remembering. The command center of Luna Base hummed with quiet tension. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood before the massive holographic display, her sharp blue eyes tracing the red blips at the edge of the Sol system. The scars on her face, a souvenir from the Europa blockade, itched under the sterile white lights. Confirmed, said Lieutenant Cho, fingers dancing across his console. 70. 3 capital ships, Zepyrian and Vorak signatures. They just crossed the Kuiper line. A murmur rippled through the officers. Hayes didn't flinch. She'd known this day would come. Captain Ryan Blake's voice crackled over the comb. Defiance is at battle stations, Admiral. Railguns charged, Icarus protocols standing by. The image of his ship, a sleek obsidian dagger against the stars, pulsed on the display. Dr. Elias Carter burst through the doors, his lab coat flapping. He clutched an Eldari data crystal, its eerie blue light casting shadows across his weathered face. Admiral, you need to see this. Hayes held up a hand. Unless it stops an armada, Doctor. It waits. Carter shoved the crystal into the holoprojector. Ancient glyphs flared to life, resolving into a warning etched 1,000,000 years ago. The Eldari didn't just fear humans, he said, voice trembling. They studied us. This is a tactical analysis of our behavioral patterns. The glyphs shifted, showing primitive humans dragging wounded comrades from battlefields, then nuclear fire over cities, then the Martian secession wars, entire fleets burning in the void. Hayes smirked. So we're predictable. No, Carter said. Look at the timestamps. The display zoomed in. Every major human conflict had been preceded by decades of peace. The Eldari annotation glowed crimson. They do not wage war, they store it. Blake's voice cut back in. Admiral, long-range scans show their lead dreadnought, the Obsidian Throne, is powering siege weapons. They'll be in firing range in 6 hours. Hayes tapped her comm. All ships condition Omega. Activate the Lazarus network. Alarms wailed. Across Luna's surface, hidden silos groaned open. Carter grabbed her arm. You can't seriously be. They think we're weak, Doctor. Hayes peeled his fingers off her sleeve. Good. Let them. On the Defiance's bridge, Blake watched his tactical screen light up with dormant defense platforms coming online. His XO commander Vega whistled. All this time we had a second fleet. Blake checked his sidearm. Not a fleet. He nodded at the Lazarus icons. A trap. Back in the war room, Hayes studied the hologram of Earth. Blue, fragile bait. She opened a fleet-wide channel. Today, the Dark Federation learns why humanity never needed allies. Her voice carried across 1,000 ships. We are the storm. The lights dimmed as Luna Base's primary reactors diverted power to the railgun array. Somewhere beyond Pluto, the enemy advanced, unaware of the jaws about to close. Carter stared at the Eldari warning, now flashing urgently. It translated to a single word: run. The first plasma lances tore through Pluto's orbital defenses like paper. Admiral Krell's voice crackled across the Dark Federation. Fleet's comms, thick with Vorak arrogance. Primary target eliminated. Advanced to secondary positions. On the bridge of the USN Defiance, Captain Ryan Blake watched the tactical display flare red. Pluto Station, gone. Just like that. 30,000 souls. His knuckles whitened around the armrests of his command chair. All ships, fall back to Neptune's gravity well. Admiral Hayes ordered over the fleet-wide channel. Her holographic image flickered above the console, the scars on her face illuminated by emergency lighting. Formation Delta Phi. Hold the line there. A Zepyrian dreadnought, the Obsidian Throne's sister ship Veil of Annihilation, surged ahead of the enemy formation. Its plasma cannons glowed like dying suns. Captain, Lieutenant Cho called out, her voice tight. They're locking onto the Beijing. Blake didn't need to check the scanners. He could see it on the view screen. The human cruiser Beijing, one of the oldest ships in the fleet, desperately trying to evade. Too slow. The Veil of Annihilation fired. A spear of blue-white energy lanced across the void. The Beijing's shields held for half a second before collapsing. The ship split open like a gutted fish, atmosphere venting in a silent scream. God damn it, Blake whispered. Defiance Actual. This is Atlantica. Commander Ruiz. Voice cut through the static. We're taking heavy fire on the port flank. There, the transmission dissolved into screeching feedback as another Zepyrian cruiser unleashed a volley. Blake's tactical officer, Lieutenant Graves, swore. Sir, Atlantica's shields are down to 12%. If they take another hit... Helm, bring us about, Blake snapped. Full thrust to intercept. Weapons, target that Zepyrian bastard's engines. The Defiance banked hard, her gravity compensators groaning under the strain. On the view screen, the Atlantica listed to starboard, her hull scorched black. The Zepyrian cruiser loomed behind her, cannons charging again. Locked, Graves said. Fire. The Defiance's railguns thundered. Tungsten rounds streaked across the void, punching through the Zepyrian's armor. Secondary explosions rippled along its flank. A cheer started on the bridge, then died as 3 more enemy ships broke formation. Multiple contacts inbound, Cho said. Vorak destroyers, vectoring straight for us. Blake's stomach dropped. The Defiance was good, but not that good. Admiral Hayes, he opened a direct channel. We're getting swarmed out here requesting orders. Static, then Hayes' voice, calm as ice. Hold position, Captain. Admiral, hold. The line went dead. On the tactical display, the remaining human ships were pulling back, not toward Neptune, but past it, toward Uranus, toward Earth, Blake understood they weren't retreating, they were luring. The Defiance shuddered as a Vorak plasma torpedo detonated against her shields. Alarms wailed. "Shields at 40%, Graves shouted. Another hit. Another. The lights flickered. Blake wiped blood from his brow where a falling console panel had grazed him. He looked at his crew. Cho's hands flying over her console. Graves' jaw clenched. The young ensign at navigation gripping his yoke like it was the only thing keeping him alive. They were all waiting for the order to run. Blake smiled. "Helm," he said. "Set course for the Veil of Annihilation." "A beat of silence, sir?" Ramming speed. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Then Graves grinned. Cho nodded. The ensign swallowed hard, but his hand steadied. The Defiance turned, her engines flaring white. Hot, the Veil of Annihilation loomed ahead, its cannons still charging. Blake opened a fleet-wide channel one last time. "Humanity doesn't fall back," he said. "We drag you down with us." The Defiance surged forward. The Defiance shuddered as another plasma volley slammed into its buckling shields. Captain Blake gripped his command chair, knuckles white. Half his bridge crew were dead or bleeding out. The tactical display showed the same nightmare repeating across the fleet. Human ships dying in droves against the Dark Federation's onslaught. "Shields at Fey," Lieutenant Cho reported, her voice tight. "Port thrusters gone. We've lost the Valiant and Stormbreaker." Blake didn't flinch. His eyes stayed locked on the holographic feed of High Overlord Vex's flagship, the Obsidian Throne, looming like a jagged mountain against the stars. "Hayes," he growled into the comm. "We can't hold much longer." Admiral Hayes's face flickered onto the main screen, her scarred cheek illuminated by emergency lighting. Behind her, Luna Command's control center buzzed with frantic activity. "Hold position, Captain." Carter's almost. A explosion rocked the Defiance, cutting her off. The lights flickered, and for a terrifying second, gravity failed. Blake's stomach lurched as his body floated before the artificial gravity re-engaged with a sickening jolt. Then Dr. Carter's voice crackled through, breathless with triumph. "It is ready. Activating Project Icarus." Blake didn't hesitate. "All hands, brace for core activation." Deep in the Defiance's belly, something ancient and terrible woke up. The ship's reactor screamed as alien, forged systems reverse, engineered from Eldari ruins on Mars, spun to life. The dreadnought's armored hull split open along hidden seams, revealing a weapon no living species had seen in millennia. On the bridge, the crew watched in awe as their main screen displayed the unfolding nightmare. The Defiance's spine cracked apart, exposing a spiraling array of blackened alloy and pulsating violet energy. "What in God's name?" whispered Ensign Rivera. Carter's voice was feverish with excitement. "Singularity cannon online. Firing solution locked." The Zepyrian battleship Dreadfang never saw it coming. One moment it was charging its plasma lances for a killing blow. The next, space itself twisted around it. A pinpoint of absolute darkness bloomed at the Defiance's prow, then lanced out in a beam of warped gravity. The Dreadfang imploded. Not exploded. Imploded. Its kilometer-long frame crumpled like paper in a fist, armor plating screeching as it compacted into a sphere no larger than a shuttle. Then, with a silent flash, it winked out of existence. Dead silence filled the Defiance's bridge. Then the comms erupted. "Repeat. Was that the Defiance? What the hell just..." Multiple Vorak signatures vanishing from scopes. "They're folding. The Zepyrians are breaking formation." Blake allowed himself a savage grin. "All ships, this is Defiance Actual. Target their flagships. Fire at will." Across the battlefield, human vessels that had seemed moments from destruction now turned the tide. The cruiser Mjolnir unleashed a volley of singularity torpedoes, shredding 3 Vorak destroyers into spiraling debris. The battle carrier Titan's Fist deployed gravity mines that sent an entire Zepyrian wing careening into each other. On the obsidian throne, High Overlord Vexus watched his fleet's advance turn to chaos. His chitinous claws dug into the armrests of his throne as the holographic display flickered with catastrophic losses. "Impossible," he hissed. "These are humans." Admiral Krell's frill stood erect in panic. "Overlord, their weapons. They're using Eldari tech. We must retreat." Vexus rounded on Cirrus Ylva, who stood motionless, her glowing eyes fixed on the carnage. "You knew," he snarled. Ylva didn't blink. "I warned you, they dig up graves and turn the dead's weapons against the living. That is what humans do." Hayes' voice suddenly boomed across every Dark Federation channel, crisp and merciless. "Attention invading forces. This is Admiral Lisa Hayes of United Earth Space Command. You came into our home thinking we were prey." The feed showed her standing before a hologram of Earth, her face cast in the blue glow of Luna Command's war table. "Now you see the truth. We are the inheritors of dead empires, the grave robbers of gods, and you," she leaned forward, eyes burning, "you're just the next name on our list of extinct threats." The transmission cut. In its wake, the human fleet moved. Blake watched the Obsidian Throne's escorts scramble to form a defensive screen too late. The Defiance's singularity cannon hummed back to life, its targeting array painting Vexus' flagship in a crosshair of annihilation. "Captain," Carter said over comms, "full power will burn out the core one shot." Blake didn't hesitate. Fire. Space tore open. The Obsidian Throne, pride of the Dark Federation, conqueror of 100 worlds, twisted like a leaf in a hurricane before vanishing into the abyss. Silence. Then cheers erupted across the human fleet. Hayes' voice came through again, calm as a surgeon's scalpel. "All ships reform on the Defiance. This isn't over." Blake exhaled, staring at the empty space where the enemy flagship had been. Somewhere out there, the rest of the Dark Federation was watching. Let them. The bridge of the Defiance was silent except for the steady beep of damaged systems. Captain Blake wiped blood from his temple, his fingers leaving a dark smear across his forehead. The view screen showed the burning wreckage of human ships drifting among the corpses of Zepyrian cruisers. Admiral Hayes stood slowly, her boots crunching on broken glass from shattered consoles. The crew turned to watch as she straightened her uniform. Her voice was calm when she spoke. "Open a fleet, wide channel, every frequency. Every Dark Federation ship, too." The comm officer hesitated. "Admiral, they'll pinpoint our location. Let them." Hayes' smile didn't reach her eyes. The channel hissed open with a burst of static across the Sol system, on 100 crippled human vessels, on the bridge of every alien warship. Speakers crackled to life. "High Overlord Vexus," Hayes' voice echoed across the void. "Admiral Krell, all you proud conquerors of the Dark Federation." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "You came to our home expecting weak prey. You found wolves instead." On the Obsidian Throne, Vexus's claws dug into his command throne. "Pathetic human bravado," he hissed. But his sub-commanders didn't meet his eyes. Hayes continued, her voice growing colder with each word. "You studied our history but learned nothing. We don't fight for territory, not for resources. When humanity goes to war, we fight to erase threats permanently." Blake watched the tactical display as alien ships began shifting position, their formations tightening defensively. Hayes saw it too, her lips curled. "You've seen our black hole weapons, our singularity cores. These weren't built yesterday." She leaned closer to the mic. "We've had them for decades waiting, because we knew something would come knocking eventually." Krell snarled orders to his gunners. "Find that transmission source. Destroy that ship." Hayes' laughter carried across the channel, dark and mocking. "Oh, Admiral Krell, you still don't understand. This isn't one ship talking. This is every human vessel broadcasting the same message, every wreck, every drifting life pod." She spread her arms. "Come find us." The bridge crew of the Defiance exchanged grim smiles. Hayes' voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried farther than her shouts. "Here's your choice, Vexus. Turn your fleet around right now. Leave Sol. Never return." She paused. "Or stay, and learn why the Eldari called us the storm that cleanses worlds." Static flared as the Defiance's damaged systems struggled. For 3 heartbeats, the channel was silent. Then Hayes delivered the final words, each syllable sharp as a knife: "Run or burn." The transmission cut out. Across the battlefield, human ships powered up weapons that had been dormant. The Defiance's singularity core hummed to life, its activation sequence bypassing all safety protocols. Blake turned to his gunnery officer. "You heard the Admiral." His teeth flashed white in the dim emergency lighting. "Let's show them what burning looks like." The Defiance shuddered as another plasma volley slammed into its battered hull. Warning klaxons wailed through the smoke-filled bridge. Captain Blake gripped his command chair, knuckles white. On the main display, the Dark Federation fleet advanced like a swarm of locusts, their weapons glowing with murderous light. "Shields at 12%, Lieutenant Cho reported, her voice tight. "Portside thrusters are gone. We can't take another hit like that." Blake wiped blood from his forehead. The taste of copper filled his mouth. "Hayes." Admiral Hayes's face flickered onto the comms. Behind her, Luna Command burned. "Hold position, Captain. Just 30 more seconds." 30 seconds is a lifetime out here," Blake muttered. A Zephyrian battleship loomed on the view screen, its obsidian hull bristling with weapons. It locked onto the Defiance with predatory precision. Then silence. The Zephyrian ship hesitated, its weapons dimmed. A new alert blared across the bridge. "Gravimetric surge detected," Cho shouted. "Off the starboard bow." Space itself twisted, the stars blurred. Then, with a soundless roar, reality tore open. A black hole bloomed into existence, dragging a Vorak cruiser screaming into its maw. The ship's hull crumpled like paper, its engines flaring uselessly before vanishing into the abyss. Hayes's voice crackled over the fleet-wide channel. Now, across the battlefield, human ships. Those that had seemed crippled, those that had limped away, turned as one. Their hulls split open, revealing the pulsating cores of Project Icarus. Singularity cannons, reverse, engineered from Eldari warnings, hummed to life. The USN Atlantica, its engines dead, its hull scorched, rotated toward the Obsidian Throne. High Overlord Vexus's flagship, Captain Ito. Hayes's voice was soft. A tired chuckle came through the comms. "Been an honor, Admiral." The Atlantica fired its last thrusters, not to flee but to charge. It rammed the Obsidian Throne at full burn, its singularity core detonating on impact. Space screamed. The black hole swallowed both ships whole. Vexus's final transmission was a wordless howl of rage before static claimed it. The tide turned. Human ships, outnumbered, outgunned, became predators. They herded the panicking Federation fleet into kill zones, sacrificing crippled vessels to drag enemy flagships into the waiting maws of artificial singularities. The Defiance, bleeding but unbroken, carved through a Zephyrian battle group, its railguns firing non-stop. Blake watched as a Vorak dreadnought, its shields flickering, tried to flee. Cho, lock onto their engines. Already done. Fire. The Defiance's last torpedo streaked across the void. It punched through the dreadnought's weakened hull and detonated inside its reactor core. The explosion lit up the black like a dying star. Hayes's voice echoed across the fleet. "All units press the advantage. No mercy, no retreat." The Dark Federation broke. Ships that had laughed at human weakness now scrambled over each other to escape. Some collided in their panic. Others jettisoned weapons to gain speed. None made it past the outer system. Human destroyers, lying in wait near the system's edge, opened fire. The last of the Federation fleet died screaming in the dark. Silence fell over the battlefield. Blake slumped in his chair, exhaustion hitting him like a hammer. The bridge crew cheered, but the sound felt distant. Hayes appeared on the view screen. Her face was streaked with soot, her uniform torn, but her eyes, cold, satisfied, burned with victory. "Report," Blake exhaled. "Fleet's in bad shape, but we're alive. The Federation, not so much." A ghost of a smile touched Hayes's lips. "Good," then the long-range sensors chimed. Cho paled. "Admiral, we've got new contacts, multiple fleets, emerging from slip space at the edge of the system." Hayes didn't flinch. "How many?" "Too many to count." Blake met Hayes's gaze. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. The bridge of the Defiance was silent, except for the steady beep of damaged systems. Captain Ryan Blake leaned against his command chair, his uniform torn and stained with blood. The view screen showed the aftermath. Twisted metal, shattered hulls, and the fading glow of dying starships drifting through the void. "Report," Blake croaked, his voice raw from shouting orders over the din of battle. Lieutenant Chen wiped soot from her console. "Enemy fleet is in full retreat, sir. What is left of them anyway?" A weak cheer rose from the crew, but it died quickly. They all knew the cost. The USN Atlantica was gone, along with half the Sol defense fleet. Pluto's gate was a graveyard. Admiral Lisa Hayes stepped onto the bridge, her face unreadable. Her once pristine uniform was singed, her left arm bandaged. She moved to the center of the room, her boots crunching on broken glass. "Casualty count?" she asked quietly. 70. 3% of our forces, Blake said. "The obsidian throne is dust, Vexus with it." Hayes nodded. "Good." Dr. Elias Carter limped in, clutching the Eldari artifact to his chest like a holy relic. His glasses were cracked, one lens missing. "They ran," he said breathless, "just like the Codex said they would." Hayes turned to the view screen. The remnants of the Dark Federation fleet were vanishing into jump space, their engines flaring like dying embers. "They'll be back," she said, "with more." Blake clenched his fists. "Let them. We'll be ready." A sudden alert blared across the comms. Chen stiffened. "Admiral, long-range scanners are picking up another signature, massive energy spike at the edge of the system." Hayes didn't flinch. "Show me." The screen flickered. Zooming in on the anomaly, a single ship, sleek and black, emerged from the darkness. It bore no insignia, no markings, just a silhouette that made Carter's blood run cold. "That is not Federation," he whispered. Hayes studied it, then smirked. "No, it is ours." Blake frowned. "Ours, Admiral. We don't have any ships like that." "We do now." She tapped her comm. "Open a channel." Static hissed, then cleared. A voice, deep and calm, filled the bridge. "Admiral Hayes, you called." Hayes crossed her arms. "Took you long enough." A dry chuckle. "Had to make sure you meant it." The ship's hull split open, revealing rows of weapons that shouldn't exist, pulsing with energy that defied known physics. Carter's artifact glowed in response, humming like a living thing. Blake's eyes widened. "What the hell is that?" Hayes didn't look away from the screen. "Insurance." The voice spoke again. "Orders." Hayes exhaled. "Follow them. Make sure they remember what happens when you wake the old terror." A pause. Then, with pleasure, the ship vanished, faster than light, leaving no trace. Silence settled over the bridge. Carter swallowed hard. "Admiral, what did we just unleash?" Hayes turned, her gaze steady. "A message." Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the Dark Federation was regrouping. They would come again with greater numbers, greater fury. Hayes smiled. "Let them come."